Now, again, I would want to call on somebody that we probably know all here, but I'm pretty sure he would be much happy to introduce himself to everybody. Professor Amos La, to give us the opening lecture.
Thank you very much, Silva, and thank you, Peter. As indicated, my name is Amos La. I'm a professor of public health nutrition at the University of Ghana School of Public Health in Accra. I would like to join Peter to welcome all of you to FERN2023 and to thank you for your interest in the food environment work in the African sub-region. When I talk about food environment work, I'm referring to the research, I'm referring to the policy and practice. And so today, as Peter indicated, my marching orders to give a framing presentation, an introductory presentation. I would call that a discussion starter, a starter to the discussion or conversation that we are going to have today, but also tomorrow and then the next. As far as today's presentation is concerned, I do not have any conflict of interest to disclose. My very short presentation would cover three themes. As I've noted, it's going to be a framing presentation. And so I would revisit some of the things that I think most on the platform today are familiar with, but do relate to me for a few minutes. There are newcomers to FERN, but also newcomers when it comes to this space. And so I'll spend some time and talk about food environment as a concept, looking at its definitional perspectives, dimension, but also typology. I'll then talk about how food environment as a construct could be applied, to public health. So using research, policy, and practice. And then end with how we believe we could valorize these application of food environment to addressing public health issues. So as a concept, it actually first emerged within the in ecology, within the context of how food chains of various species, such as looking at the nutritional quality and then abundance of food supply of various herbivores in an ecosystem. And so those who are interested in this, if you read chapter 2 of the book edited by Paolo and Robbins and published in 1991, Plant Defenses Against Mammalian Herbivory, you could see chapter 2 authored by Lacquer and Demand, the dilemma of foraging in especially heterogeneous food environment. So those were some of the early references or work in this space. The concept got expanded and applied in public health late 1990s by Boyd Simbeng and colleagues, but also others. And around this time, it was used almost synonymously with what we refer to as obesogenic environment, but also nutrition environment. To those of us who work in this, one of the consequential characterization in terms of defining the food environment was one made by Simbeng and colleagues in 2013, which says, and I quote, that a food environment is the collective physical, economic, policy, and sociocultural surroundings, but also opportunities and conditions that influence what you and I choose to eat, with the assumption that we do have the agency or opportunity to choose. There are multiple definitional perspectives of food environment. The FAO has one, the high-level panel on food security and nutrition, high-level panel of experts on food security and nutrition has one, and all these definitions are very similar. So I do not intend to read all of them to you. In 2018, Chris Turner and others shared one that I think, in my view, has been very popular, very well received by most of us. And so to summarize, as far as defining food environment is concerned, using Simbank's definition, FAO's definition, the high-level panel of experts on food security and nutrition, Christina, Anna Hefford, and several others, we could see food environment as a space. And when I talk about a space or interface, it could be physical space, physical interface, but also figurative, metaphoric space in which people, that's food system actors, make decisions about food, including what to eat, where to source it, when to eat it, and with whom. And so when you get to the what, the where, the when, and with whom, concepts such as periodicity, tempo, but also synchronization then become important in defining food environment. In 2020, Shanna Dons and her colleagues, co-authors, made an effort, and they recognized a gap and made an effort to expand the concept of food environment from the then, preoccupation on built food environment to natural food environment, noting that the built food environment did not do justice to the food environments of lower middle income countries. And I do agree with them. And so they introduced a natural food environment where you can have wild food environment, but also cultivated. But food environment could also, the typology or dimensions could also be presented in terms of their healthfulness. And so we talk about food deserts, used to describe neighborhood deprivation of affordable and nutritious food, or food swamps, is a metaphor to describe neighborhood where unhealthy food overwhelm, healthier alternatives. But also food mirages, where healthy and nutritious food may be available, but they are not affordable. And so as food environment enthusiasts, food environment advocate, what we wish to do is to nudge the food environment in such a way that we move from food desert, food mirage, to food oasis or food haven. So food oasis refer to, environment with abundance of healthy, nutritious, and affordable food. And then food havens describe healthy and sustainable food environment as well. There are several domains of food environment. So you could look at food environment with respect to accessibility, affordability of food, availability of food, but also food pricing. Food promotion is also a domain. Food policy is a domain within food environment, but also food quality. I wouldn't like to spend too much time on these. I would just refer you to an excellent work that was done by Bianca Cadisse. She did this when she was then a PhD student at University of Toronto. She's now a postdoc at Johns Hopkins University. Looking at food environment, she looked at the domains, the construct, but also selected measures. And for those who may be new to food environment and are interested in this, I think it's a paper that I would recommend you read. And so we have learned a lot since then about food environment and how food environment can be exploited to make, it easier for us to eat unhealthy food. And so people exploit using food environment, they can exploit it positively, but also negatively. And so exploiting people's biological, psychological, social, and economic vulnerabilities, making it easier for us to eat unhealthy food compared to healthier food. And so there's a need to respond to that exploitation. And that responses could be through policy, it could be through other interventions. And so talking about policies, in 2013, Simbeng again and colleagues, as part of the Informers network, produced a number of models that can be applied in various settings. One of the models, the Public Sector Healthy Food Environment Policy Index, the Food EP, we refer to it. You can see here has a number of policy domains. And so food composition, food labeling, food promotion, food provisioning, food retail, food prices, but also food trade and environment are policy domains that can be acted upon towards improving our food environment. Aside from that, there are also infrastructural domains that we could apply. We can refer to them as enabling environment actors. So if you take some of the food environment policies I just referred to here are descriptions for those who may not be familiar with this. So if you take food composition, those policies concerns themselves with what is the nutrient composition of food and non-alcoholic beverages. Food containing nutrients of concern in amount that we should be concerned about. If you take food labeling, what health-related labeling must be present on food and non-alcoholic beverages. So those policies look at that. If you take food retail, for example, what is the relative availability of healthy and unhealthy food in our communities, in our market, in our schools? So food prices, food trade, and investment, as I noted earlier. And so others have argued that it is important for all these policies to be, deployed. We need a mix, not just one policy, but a mix of low agency, but also high agency food environment policies. There are some of the policies that we want to inform and empower consumers. There are some of the other policies we want them to guide and influence consumers. And there are even other food environment policies we would invoke them to incentivize consumption of healthier food and discourage consumption of unhealthy food. And through these, as I noted earlier, once we have all these policies implemented, there's a possibility that would be, nudging and changing our food environment from food desert, food zones, food mirages into food oases and food havens. We have made this argument in some of our work as to what role food environment policies can make or play in making unhealthy food unattractive, but whilst making healthier food attractive and affordable. And so that I'm now zooming into from general to specifics. And so that motivated some of the food environment work that we have done in Ghana over the years, culminating in the project that we are currently implementing. When I say we, Ghana, refer to as the Healthier Diet for Healthy Lives project. And this project seeks to use a nutrient profiling model. Most of us are familiar with it, a tool that would help us identify food as to whether they are healthy or not healthy. And if food are identified to be unhealthy, then a number of food-based policies can then be invoked, including the labeling I talked about, public food procurement, fiscal policies, marketing restrictions, food composition, but also food retail policies. And so that is what we are working on currently in Ghana. And our hypothesis or logic model, which is motivated by work that was led by Boots and Andrew Boots, published in 2021, is that if only the Ghanaian government and therefore other government can implement comprehensive policies as I've just outlined to you, those mix of low agency but high agency policy interventions, it is possible that food environment actors would make either immediate or strategic actions that would negate importation, production, processing, retail, or marketing of those unhealthy food, and the converse would hold for healthier food. But we know there are challenges, right? It is one thing to wish to develop policies and to implement them, but challenges such as policy inertia, policy gradualism have always been a problem. And so in Ghana, what we aimed to do was to address those policy inertia problems. And what we had to do was to form a coalition of public health advocates, a coalition of civil society organization, and advocate. And so we had to get civil society implementing advocacy that is evidence-informed. We had to get academics participating in advocacy we refer to as scholar activism. In the interest of time, I would refer you to a publication that we made recently in the BMJ Global Health that has summarized this advocacy intervention that I'm just referring you to. And so we titled it Making Food-Related Health Taxes Palatable, not only just in Ghana, but in Sub-Saharan Africa. And we shared lessons from Ghana that we believe will be useful to other countries. The strategies that we used included, as you can see here, coalition building, evidence synthesis, and contextual analysis. We had to plan strategically, developed advocacy strategy, communication plan, but also deploy a lot of sensitization to community members, to the general population. There were times when we found it necessary to issue position statement, and so we issued them to various actors, including the president of the country. We distributed press statement and held press conferences. We had stakeholder engagement and various dissemination efforts, but we also use, as all of us understand now, social media is very powerful. So we use social media, we did blogging and wrote several op-eds. You can see over 80 publications were made in these spaces. I would just run through these quickly. And so some of the approaches that I just read to you included, as you have here, having online fora, with various stakeholders, including lawyers, looking at the legal and public health implications of the policy that we're focusing on, sugar, sweet, and beverage taxation. We identified very respected people in our community. Some were known academics as champions. We identified traditional leaders, Queen Mother as an influencer. We identified health professionals to also serve as influencers. We worked with the Ghana Medical Association. They are a mouthpiece when it comes to issues relating to our health. And so they weighed in and then explained to the Ghanaian population the harms that sugar sweetened beverages do to our health. We engaged lawmakers, as you can see today. Left, we submitted our position statement to our Ghanaian parliamentarians, met with Ministry of Finance and East agencies to the right, a meeting we had with the Ghana Revenue Authority. And so in the end, we got what we were advocating for. Ghana introduced a bill, and it was tabled, it was debated and approved finally on the 31st of March. And then swiftly on April the 3rd, our president signed it into a law. And so we do have the 1093rd Act of the Republic of Ghana, the Excise Duty Amendment Act. Among others, it imposes a 20% tax on sugar sweetened beverages and other health harming commodities, including plastics and plastic products. And so I've run through this quickly, but this is what food environment as a concept sometimes appears theoretical, just as a construct, but we can apply it and apply its policy in addressing public health challenges. So this is just one example. The other example is the same team have worked on, developing the Ghana's first ever national food-based dietary guidelines, and the HD4HL project that I talked to you about is working on developing 4 other food environment policies: front of pack labeling policy, marketing restriction policy, public food procurement policy, but also a food-related fiscal policy, which of course supports taxation of sugar sweetened beverages, but other unhealthy products, including ultra-processed food. And that is what we are working on now. But we do not want this to be work that just benefit Ghana. And so that is why we formed this platform, this network called FERN. And so at that time, it was just a concept. Now, having had FERN1, FERN2, FERN3, we have demonstrated and have published in this journal, Global Health Promotion, that FERN is no longer just a concept, but we've moved from concept to practice. So we had FERN1 in 2020. Some of the outputs and the team that were covered included training or capacity building, but also identifying at that time, that was our first meeting, what should the priorities for food environment research in the continent be? And so deliberatively, participants of FERN1 contributed to this. And so we have since published the food environment research priorities for Africa. One thing for those who may not be familiar with the FERN environment, all the meetings that we hold are recorded, and we have a website that you can go and download all the presentations or all the recordings. This is the output from FERN1 that I've talked about. It facilitated the identification of research priorities for Africa, food environment research priorities. Then the second FERN in 2021 title, the theme was Leveraging Food Environment Research Network. So leveraging FERN to transform Africa's food systems. And so we partnered with informers to deliver FERN 2021. I understand it was very successful, those who participated and those who have also used their resources. And so this year, here we are, FERN 2023, the third FERN, where we are interested in facilitating the identification. When we identify, we collate and then valorize food environment research, food environment policy, and practice in Africa. So as I said, it's a short presentation. My aim was to restate the concept, definition of perspectives, and typology and dimensions of food environment, and how such seemingly, abstract construct could be applied in addressing public health problems. And so that's what I've done. I would like to end with the fact that for these to work, and to work for us now and work for us tomorrow and others even years to come, there needs to be continuous monitoring. And so a few years ago, what we did was to look at who is doing what in Africa as far as implementation of models that seek to improve food environment is concerned. And at that time, we focused on the public sector healthy food environment policy index I talked to you about. At the time, 4 countries had done this in Africa. So Ghana, Kenya, Senegal, and South Africa. And we discussed and shared what they had done, and with the hope that other countries would be motivated and do that. I'm happy to report to you, and I'm sure this list has even increased, that currently about 10 countries in Africa have implemented that first model, the food epi model. And other countries, as I noted, Ghana is implementing more than 4 of the models, Kenya, and you would hear from all those countries, South Africa and others in today's and tomorrow's presentations. I think I would end here. I'd like to express our sincere thanks to all the partners of FERN. Too many here to name, but you can see their logos. They have contributed to FERN since we started this in 2020. We received funding. The funding for the project that inaugurated FERN, the Meal for NCD, was funded by the IDRC Canada. We continue to show our appreciation to IDRC, not only just for the funds that they gave us, but the confidence that they had in us in the first place to give us those funds. We hope we have been very good stewards of the resources that they gave us. Thank you, and let me hand it over to Silva. Silva, over to you.